my goodness! Holy sh!
Hey folks, this week's video is going to be a little unusual. We're going to be talking about lawnmowers. Now, lawnmowers isn't exactly a fun topic, but if nothing else, it might show you the, what's the word here, the measures that a cheap ass like me would go through to keep an old vintage mower going in order to not have to pay money for something like this, and at what point I just threw in the towel. If you watched last week's video, you saw I gave you a quick glimpse of this and said it was hopefully going to take care of my lawnmower issues, but we can talk about this one later. Let's go show you the one that it's replacing. So this I've had for, I'm going to guess, 10 to 12 years. I'm told it's a 70's vintage, obviously a Hustler zero turn, has a 72-inch deck. Like I said, had it a long time. I bought it, I don't remember how much I paid for it, a couple hours north of here. Thought I had to have a zero turn, and yeah, being a cheap ass, I found it on Craigslist. Anyway, it didn't run. The guy I bought it from, he never ran it himself, but it belonged to his neighbor, and he bought it at his neighbor's auction. So I brought it home in non-running condition. Let's see here. The biggest problem I found with it when I got it home, the entire air shrouding here was full of walnut holes, or some critter had stuffed it just full. I got it all cleared out, and I don't remember exactly what I had to do to get it running, but it wasn't much. It surprisingly didn't take much work. I think right off the bat, when I first started using it though, when it would get hot, it would die. So obviously, yeah, something's getting hot that's affecting how it's running. And that turned out to be the coil. The coil was originally mounted right here on the intake, right above that hot exhaust manifold. So I moved the coil over here and used some Ford spark plug wires to make it reach the spark plugs. Solved that problem. Like I said, I'm going to be all over the place. I've done so much to this mower over the years. I'm going to forget stuff and add it in. I think it wasn't long after that I blew a head gasket on it, but I think that might have been my fault because of the, I think I had the timing off just a little bit. First few years, yeah, I didn't really have too much trouble with it at all, other than that coil. As time went on, if I remember right, the next big issue I had, see, this engine here was not original to it. The Kohler engine ran the deck as well. There was a clutch right on here. And I think maybe I'd had it about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, been mowing with it, and the clutch blew up. I kind of initially looked for a clutch for it, but I figured it's so obsolete, the odds of me finding one were going to be slim, and even if I did find one, it was going to be horribly expensive. So I had this other old riding mower. The mower was pretty well shot, other than the engine. So yeah, what am I going to do? I'm going to put that engine on there and make it work. Got a tensioner here from a Ford, obviously. Had to put another pulley here. Ran pretty good. Again, not many problems, and I think it was about, every maybe year and a half I'd have to put a new set of points on it. And there was no way to make this a electronic ignition that I could find. So that was always one of my biggest problems. Another one of the big problems it has, I guess it wasn't big, but I did go through the carburetor at one point, and I don't know if it's something that I did as an adjustment that's wrong, or if it's just something shot in the carburetor, but when you would get done mowing and shut it off, the float in there would not work, and it would flood the carburetor, and it would flood the engine. The cylinders would get full, the crankcase would get full. Quickly got into the habit of I didn't just get done mowing and shut it off. I would shut off the fuel and let it run out with this and the front engine. Another kind of a problem when I'd go to start it, the starters a lot of times would just spin. It'd take a while. You'd have to keep messing with it to get it to engage, but it always did go eventually. After the clutch blew up, there was a screen here. that would prevent it from sucking up grass. And yeah, when the clutch blew up, just tore it up. There were just chains hanging all the way around the deck back here, and the grass would get sucked up into here without that screen here to stop it. So yeah, I had to put these rubber flaps all the way around the deck to stop that from happening. And the rubber flaps did help with the quality of the cut too. This thing never really had a great quality of cut, but it did a pretty decent job. The worst thing was if you got it into heavy grass, it wouldn't sling the grass out here in a nice even pattern. If it was really heavy, it would just ball it up and just kind of puke it out the side weakly. Might have something to do with, yeah, the chain's not up here, not letting it develop enough vacuum. It's, from what I was told, it was more of a brush mower than anything, than for mowing lawns. But yeah, the biggest thing about this, it wasn't fast either. The biggest plus you could say to this is that 72-inch deck size. It would just cover a lot of ground, even going slow. I think it was maybe 4 years ago, the caster wheels on the front of the deck, the pivots in here just got shot. And yeah, the tires were always rubbing against the framework, so I cut all that up, put bearings in it, and redid all that. The shaft going up through there, it was worn. I had to build it up with weld and then carefully grind it back down and get it to fit through the bearings. Put ATV tires on it almost from the beginning because this thing was so big and heavy that the turf tires, it would just get stuck so easily. This is the second set of ATV tires I've had on it, because the first set, there's still plenty of tread on them, but they just dry rotted away and blew out. And these ones are kind of on their way to doing that too. The past, I would say 4 years, the points started getting worse. And you can see the points right there. It was getting to where this thing would, something would happen to it at least every second or third time I would mow, which was frustrating, obviously. Part of the deal with the points, they were just getting worn out faster, and they would get oil on them. There was oil coming up through the engine. And yeah, I would be mowing along and die, and I'd have to go get a can of carb cleaner, clean them off, dry them out, and get it going again. And then it got to the point where I would just do that before I even started mowing, because I knew it was going to happen. And the points were starting to wear out faster and faster. Last year I added this thing that's called a transducer. To my understanding, what it's supposed to do, it's converted the points into just a low voltage signal, and then the transducer does the actual heavy work of transferring the electrical spark, or not the spark, but the electrical signal to the coil. I don't know if that really helped. It did seem like it slowed down the wear on the points, but still there was oil coming up in there and contaminating the points constantly. Now, if we fast forward to this year, I did the same thing, would clean the points every time before I'd use it, but like the first 3 times I used it this year, which have been the only 3 times I used it this year, it died on me every time, and I was starting to get fed up with it. And the last time this happened was last week. I've got 2 mowers. I've got a smaller mower that I use to get into tighter spots and to do this embankment, and I usually start out with it. So I started out with it, and it got maybe 15 seconds into mowing, and it quit. And I started diagnosing it. I'll show you that mower. It's Frankenstein, just like that one. My dad gave me this mower a long time ago, and he told me to scrap it. I forget what was wrong with it, but I brought it home and fixed it and started using it. This is actually the one that replaced the one that gave up its engine to put on the deck of the big Hustler out there. But anyway, this one quit on me. And as you can see, I've been cobbling it. Starter solenoid went out a couple years ago. Why am I going to go buy one when I can put a Ford one on it? Another switch there for the deck. These tires, yeah, these came on a parts mower, and I had to chop the lugs off, otherwise they'd get into the frame there. But anyway, like I said, it died on me within like 15 seconds of starting to mow. And I messed around and diagnosed it. It wasn't getting, there was gas getting to the carb, it just wasn't getting through it. So I didn't have time to mess with that. Like, I wanted to get some mowing done. Push this out of the way, I'll get what I can do with the big mower, even though I was fully expecting it to break down on me. And it did, and I was very pissed. I was ready to go all Office Space printer on the thing. And that's why I decided it's just time to get a new one. And when I went shopping, there were 3 brands I was looking at that are here local. I wanted something I could get parts for locally. And the two others, which would have been Bad Boy and Hustler, they didn't, both of those dealers pretty much didn't have anything in their inventory I was even interested in. And the guy that sells the Graveleys, he had plenty of them. And plus, I know the guy that sells Graveleys. I've been wheeling with him for years. He's a good guy. But anyway, because the others didn't have any inventory, I came back home the next day and decided I'm going to mess with this. I was hoping to get another year out of this thing before I got serious about buying another mower. But I thought maybe I can limp this thing along for a couple more weeks and those other dealers will get some inventory so I can do some comparison shopping. So I automatically went to the points because that's what's been my biggest trouble here in the past couple of years. And I quickly found out this, let's see if I can get in there. If you can see the little push rod right there that pushes through and activates the points. And this kind of explains the oil contamination too. That push rod is not being supported. Whatever is holding that is worn out or fell out or something. So where the push rod comes out at just all sorts of weird angles, so it's not getting consistent spark. Once I found that, I decided, yeah, it's game over for this thing. Is it fixable? Sure, it probably is fixable. Maybe there's just a bushing in there that needs replaced. Maybe it could be machined and have a bushing put in it. I don't know. I'm done with this thing. I'm just done with it. It's gave me many years of somewhat decent service, but I was just ready to move on to something else. There's the factor of not having to stop and work on it constantly, and plus this newer mower should, even though it has a smaller deck, it should move along quite a bit quicker and cover more ground, even with the smaller deck. So let's take a closer look at it as well. Actually, I got somebody on their way right now as I speak to come get this. I've had it on a Facebook Marketplace for about a week now. It's not Steve! So I've only mowed with this thing once so far, and yeah, the quality of the cut is so much better. The ride maybe a little bit better than the old one. But boy, the speed, wow, this thing rips along. And I know people that have these, maybe not this exact model, but they tell me that this thing will mow just as fast as you can push it. I didn't find that to be the case. As I, discovered the smoother parts of my yard when I could really push it, and I worked my way up to, full tilt speed, I could see that it wasn't actually cutting the grass at full speed, for me anyway, but it didn't take much backing off to get it to be where it was there. It didn't take much at all off of full speed. Maybe it's just the type of grass I have in my yard too. And I can't tell you that it's the fastest thing out there. I'm sure it isn't. I don't have a lot of experience with zero-turn mowers, big ones anyway. It's this one and the old one out there. One of the reasons I went with this particular model over one of the cheaper ones, the seat is so comfortable in this thing. So comfortable. And I optioned for the Kawasaki Big Block. It's got the 31 horsepower engine instead of the I think the next smaller one was 27. This was the last one he had with the 31 horsepower in it. Yeah, so far I'm pretty happy with it, other than the payments. But I'll probably do a review of it this fall, right before I put it away for the winter, after having lived with it for the summer, and give a better review. Because when I was doing research into big zero-turn mowers, it seems like not all, but a lot of videos you find out, their reviews, they're just dealers talking about what they're selling. And the ones that aren't, it seems like they're just people that, they're just like me. They just bought it, and they're telling why they bought it, even though they haven't had a lot of experience with it. But yeah, come fall, I'll do a little testimonial on how it did for the summer. So yeah, as you've probably concurred, the biggest problem I've had with this mower was the original Kohler engine. The hydraulics have been great. Having that engine up front seemed to solve that problem. And the thought had went through my mind more than once to repower it. This thing is so old, and by the time I would have put the trouble and effort into repowering this, because one of the things I actually thought about repowering with, I have a I don't know what year it is. It's a Geo Metro out there with a 3-cylinder engine, and those 3-cylinder engines are just super small. And yeah, I'm sure there's a way I could get it in there and adapt it to that hydraulic pump. I might have to actually stretch the frame out a little bit too. Would have made a good, interesting project. And then I, of course, I'd have to find a place to mount the radiator, and it's fuel injected, and I'd have to do all the wiring and all that crap. It would have been so much work, so much work. And it would have been my luck that after I did all that, that something in the hydraulics would have took a crap, and this thing is so old that I would not be able to find parts. So that's why I did not even really seriously consider trying to repower it, even though I think that would have solved most of my reliability problems with that old Kohler engine. And the engine itself doesn't seem to be too bad. It's just it's the spark and the ignition that's just drove me nuts over the years. At one point I even had this thing converted to run on propane, and it ran pretty good, but it was just a real bear to get it started, finding just the right settings to get it started. Once it was running, it was okay, but I took it off just because I was afraid I was going to burn that starter up, just cranking and cranking and cranking on it. But it's been sitting out here in the yard for a week now, out in the rain. I was going to give it a couple weeks, and then if nobody would have bought it, or I couldn't come up with a deal to get it sold, I was going to pull the engine off the front, so just to get it in out of the weather, and pull the tires, the ATV tires off it, and I was just going to pick it up with the loader, take it out, set it in the weeds somewhere, and just slowly pick it over for parts now and then when I needed something. Hell, if nothing else, there's lots of metal in that frame that could have been cut out and used for projects, but like I said, there's somebody coming to get it now. I did make the agreement I am going to keep the ATV tires off. I got some other turf tires I'm going to put on it, so I'm going to get busy and do that now. As I think I mentioned, I was so pissed at this thing that I was ready to go all Office Space printer on it. And I am positive that at least twice over the years of either working on this or mowing with it, I've muttered the words, "Let's do that. Let's do exactly that." I really wanted to scrap it because I was just so pissed at it. But as I calmed down over the days, I realized that there's a lot of people out there that like to restore old vintage lawnmowers and garden tractors. This is certainly vintage. It's not a lawnmower or a lawn tractor, but yeah, maybe there's somebody out there that wants to restore it. And I don't know what the buyer that's on his way, what his plans are, if he's going to restore it or just try to get it running again and to use it. But good luck to him either way. And the reason I made a deal to keep the tires on it is those maybe 15 of you loyal watchers of my channel know that I have that off-road mud mower I'm building with the motocross knobbies on it. And if the ride is too terrible on it, like I'm thinking it will be, I've got a couple ATV tires to put on it to try. Well, they're actually significantly smaller than the motocross knobbies, but yeah, it might be worth trying them out. I'll have to recenter the wheels. I'll probably run them on the front. I got another set of ATV tires I picked up at a swap meet this past spring. I guess it was winter actually. They'll go on the rear pretty good. They're about the same height. But these smaller ones can go on the front if I deem it necessary. So the only big complaint I've got with this thing so far, other than the payments I'll be making on it for quite a while, at least I did get 0% financing for 4 years, but I always wore hearing protection on my other mowers. And I was wearing it on these, wearing some earmuffs. And once I got to mowing, it's not the engine noise, there was just some sort of a reverberation or a tone or a drone or something coming from the deck. And I know it was the deck because I'd get in different kind of grass and it would change. And the hearing protection did nothing for me. And I was like, oh man, I made a huge mistake. And it was just driving me nuts. I had to stop what I was doing and put some more gas in it because I was running off the gas that was in it from the dealer. And I needed some more, and I thought, well, I'm just going to try something else. And I tried some foam push-in earplugs, solved the problem. I don't like wearing those, but it was better than listening to that drone coming from the deck. Other than that, so far I'm happy with it. Kind of should go without saying, you know, I ended up getting in debt for this mower to save time mowing and time not working on that old mower. But you know what I want to do at that time? I need that time to make more content for my channel, for my 15 loyal viewers out there. So I did it all for you guys. You're welcome. Off to a new home. Good luck to you.